Greetings everyone. I decided to make a video while being out here in nature. Want to enjoy God's creation. I know many people like to sit in front of a TV all day or be on their phones all day, but it's always good to be out and enjoy God's creation. I wanted to talk about a history that the Mormons try to hide. It's a massacre that happened in the 18th century called the Mountain Meadows. Now, this is a bloodstained massacre that Mormons in their teachings today try to pretend they never did. They actually go and blame like the Native Indians for it, which you ask the Native Indians that know the history, they would say the Mormons are liars. They actually are the ones that did the massacre. So let me tell you about it. Now, in the 18th century, Joseph Smith, a false prophet who decided to sleep with a 12-year-old and swindle people, as well as try to kill people when they were trying to catch up to him for his crimes, as well as his multiple wives with other people's wives. Very perverted person. No doubt he's burning in hell. He died, and his heir ended up taking over. I believe it's Brigham Young, that was the next heir after he died. And he wanted to build a state in Utah. And if you look at Utah today, Utah is a big majority of Mormons. Although I have been hearing that they've been in decline for a while now, so their attendance is shortening. Still a lot compared to, I think, like the Watchtower. Anyways, they wanted to build their own state, their own empire, and make it big. What happened, though, was when they were trying to do that, the U.S. was like, what are you doing? We don't see you as a independent state, and all you guys are doing is trying to build up your cult, telling people it's okay to have multiple wives, and you can have, sex in space, and have lots of babies, and that black people are black because of their sins, and that they're actually descendants of Cain, all this nonsense. So they were like, you guys are heretics. You guys are nothing but devils. So the people wanted them to get out. And when they were building up this Utah, they pretty much said to people, you're under our jurisdiction now, you're under our law, and you got to do what we say, or else, they're going to kill them. And the people are like, yeah, we're United Statesmen. We're not going to go and submit to you just because you're threatening us. We're going to stand firm. And you got to understand, mostly every man had a gun. He had to protect his wife and kids. You had to watch out for the Native Indians. You had to watch out for the Mormons. And then depending where you're at in location, even the Mexicans and Americans would have some skirmishes. And what the Mormons would do is they would actually murder men, women, and children just so they can get them out, steal their stuff, and try to keep it quiet. Now, the reason they did this was because they wanted to expand their territory, but they wanted to keep people out. And they didn't want the U.S. government to know about it, because if the U.S. government found out that they were murdering people, people are going to get mad. And if you see in history, when a nation finds out men, women, and children were murdered in cold blood, especially when unarmed, people want to fight back. People want justice. So this incident happened when you had families, men, women, children, all coming through. The Mormons said, hey, you can come through, but we're going to have to confiscate all your guns just to make sure, you're not going to do anything. And they're like, okay, well, if you give your word and you say you're Christian, then we'll give all our weapons so our, families and loved ones could be, spared, and that you'll guarantee our safety. Once they gave up the weapons, the Mormons just went and shot at them. They spared no one except the infants, and I'll tell you why. Anyone that could tell them, go back and tell the government, hey, these people are murdering us, these people robbed us, they had to be murdered. No exceptions. So men, women, children, grandparents, the only ones they spared were the infants, only because infants are like 2 years and younger. They can't talk against them. They couldn't, tell on them. So they're like, you know what? We'll spare them, but we'll take them and pretty much pervert them to our Mormon doctrine. Eventually, though, some people were able to escape and word got out. And when word got out, people were mad, but America at that time did not want a full-scale war. And then, of course, Brigham Young, he didn't want to have a full-scale war because he didn't want to have a war that he knew he was eventually going to lose. And America did not really want to have to deal with this when they were having to be wary of, I think it was either Great Britain or what's going on with Mexico and some other issues. But then they decided to send like a skirmish out there. Okay, we're going to send some American soldiers to go out there and fight. Surprisingly, when the American soldiers went to fight the Mormons ended up winning the battle. And both sides were like, we don't want this to turn ugly. The president was embarrassed that our soldiers were beaten by Mormons. And the Mormon leadership was like, oh no, if this escalates now, we're really going to have a war on our hands. So both sides decided to just, kind of take a step back and be like, okay, let's not have this escalate, because both sides don't want to put into a full-scale war. And that's what happened. And it's just sad that in Mormonism today, they'll say, oh, actually, it wasn't us that did the massacre. It was the Native Indians, the savages. They were the ones that did it. But the Native Indians that know the history were like, no, they dressed themselves like us, and they were going out there killing people and saying it was us. And then, of course, another point in history was the Mormons would put sacks on their heads so that you couldn't see their faces. And of course, the other theory was, well, it can't be Native Indians because Native Indians aren't going to put sacks on their heads. They're going to let you see their face. They were warriors. They're not going to cowardly put a sack over their head just to cover their face. So, yeah, I would say, without a doubt, Mormons are guilty of that murder. And even when mentioning this to a Mormon, they would just laugh it off or deny it, like, nah, that was just a lie. Joe Smith was a saint. He did nothing wrong. Mormons did nothing wrong. And the only thing we just believe in is self-defense. But it's like, the history proves you guys did this. I mean, the Native Indians stand on it. Americans stand on it. I mean, it's a clear indication. You could even go there today and there'll be like a plaque that was made in 2011, I believe. And it's in honor of all those in memory that were massacred, by the Mormons. I mean, if it didn't happen, why would the Mormons have that? Why would they even allow it? They know what happened. They just want to keep twisting in line, just like what the Calvinists do, just like what the Muslims do. They'll always try to pervert and cover up their sins. But God knows their sins. God knows their transgressions, and we do as well. Everyone, if you're an historian, you need to know this. We as historians need to know history, because history does repeat itself, sadly. And of course, if you know the history, you get to know the foundation of a cult or a group or a nation. So, yep, that's the clarification of the massacre. Again, feel free to look it up. Mormons will tell you they didn't, but the Native Indians and the Americans will clarify it was them. God bless.